Hi everyone, my name is Joseph Anajar. I'm a musician from Montreal, Canada, and today we're going to talk about my in-ear monitoring rig. I just took it out on tour with my band Portraits last month, and it was an immense success. We were on tour with Sungazer, Adam Neely's band, and all the shows went really, really great. Let's start at the beginning. I've pushed off making this sort of in-ear monitoring rig for a long time. I've been playing shows with my metal band Bird Problems for almost 10 years, and it was always something that would be nice to do, but in my head was too big of an undertaking to make happen. It was only while touring with the band Auras last winter that I realized that it was time that I got this going. I was chatting with Nathan Bulla. He had a really interesting setup where he was using like a digital splitter to save on space, and I kind of inspired my rig from what he was doing. I've definitely seen a bunch of local bands pull up with huge racks and then like take forever during sound check, and I didn't want that to be the case for my rig. So here are some things that I had to keep in mind while planning this build. First thing is I had to have a ridiculously quick setup and tear down. I could not see myself showing up to a show and working out issues. I needed to like be ready, play the show, and get out. Another thing was that I wanted it to feel like a luxurious thing on my end and on the band's end. I wanted to play the show, and I wanted the mix in my ears to be like the record. I really wanted that sort of luxury, like I feel good while playing and everything sounds great. The rig also needed to be able to play really large shows without upgrading any elements. But I want to make sure that if I get a really big opportunity, the rig is able to do it. This Sungazer run that we just did is definitely a bit of a litmus test for this rig. These shows were about as big as I would like expect to do in the near future, you know, and I'm happy to say that this rig like can sort of handle it. Another thing was that every element of this rig had to be completely self-contained, so I don't want to require anything from the sound guy. I don't want to ask for cables, I don't want to ask for drum mics, I don't want to ask for anything. That way we can set up everything off stage, and then once we're on stage, the sound guy's like, oh, I guess I have a show ready. Every decision that I've taken in the design of this rig, and all the logistical and technical work that I would do in rehearsals prior to the show, serves to speed up setup and make everything night of the show reliable. Because when I'm trying to play these really stupid guitar parts, I don't want to think about my gear failing. I want it to feel so robust and reliable that it's not even a worry in my mind that something might happen. And I'm happy to say that so far that is how it feels, you know, knock wood. So let's talk about the specs of this rig. So basically, the rig as is 18 inputs and 16 outputs. So that means that I get 18 inputs in our ears, right, to mix the band. And then from those 18 inputs, I split and shoot out 16 outputs to the front of house. So I do that with an MR18, which is the Midas brain of the operation. That's the mixer. I do all the mixing in that, and I do all the routing. And then I have a Midas MD4816-0 that does a digital split to front of house. So basically, I plug everything into the MR18, and then there's an Ethernet cable that shoots out to that other Midas unit, and that shoots out to a snake, and I give that snake to front of house. So basically, I show up. Once everything is patched, I hand the sound guy 16 channels of snake, and I tell him to fuck off and make us sound good, because everything else he doesn't really need to worry about. And that greatly speeds up everything. On the wireless side of things, I'm rocking 3 Sennheiser G4s, the A plus band ones, and then 1 combiner. And then we have the antenna. On the back, what we're powering with is a radial power bar. And then I got a drawer to keep everything neat. But that's kind of it. So it's a very simple rig. And the big thing to notice, I had some questions about cable management, but because of this Ethernet splitter, the Midas 4816-0 unit, there isn't a mess of XLRs inside the unit. Everything gets plugged into the brain every night. Obviously, there's 6 or so like XLR cables going from the brain to the wireless transmitters. That's some wires in the rack, but there isn't like 16 like tiny XLRs going in and out this unit. The one extra thing that I is a little bit extra, but I thought that I needed it to achieve this consistency that I was after, is I did purchase drum mics. So I got the SC Electronics Arena Pack. They were really, really nice and give me a nice discount. And then to round that out, I have a Beta 91 to go inside the kick. So basically, like the 8 drum mics that we are using for this rig stay the same every night, which means that I get to mix it in our ears while we're rehearsing, and then everything's the same every night. I don't have to remix everything in our ears, and the sound guy gets like a pretty luxurious like selection. To kind of add to this self-contained thing, me and Josh and Matt, actually, so 2 guitars and bass, were on modelers. So basically everything was the same every night. There was practically no time spent on adjusting our mixes on a nightly basis. So basically we just plug in a little line check for the sound guy, and then after that he just mixes the show. Every day that was about 15 to 20 minutes, which means that our hour-long sound check was spent rehearsing the tracks. If you've watched Josh's videos, you would have known that Josh did not rehearse with portraits. He kind of just showed up for sound check, and we just kind of made it happen. Everything that we would have had to figure out day of, we did the work ahead of time to not have to figure out day of. So the compromise that I made is I have a bit of a lower input count, right? 18 inputs is a bit of a low number for a prog band, especially when we're like running backing tracks and we want talkbacks and stuff like that. So it kind of runs into this. I'm kind of maxed out every time I do a mock input list. Especially with portraits, because we're running 2 stereo guitars and we want some talkback stuff. So, I don't see myself upgrading for a very long time because everything works and there isn't a need for a change, If I were to upgrade anything, I would be getting a bigger mixer and then another one of those Ethernet racks. That way I could I could do 32 in, 32 out. However, I would like to grind touring for a good amount of time before I feel the need that I need to do that. I really don't feel that I need to do that. However, if you're wondering like where is the pitfall of this rig, that's where it is. It's in the number of inputs. While prepping these shows, I did come into an issue where I wanted to have 18 outs, 18 ins and 18 outs, not 16 outs. So what I did is I sort of made up for that by just purchasing two of these Art Split Com Pro by Art Accessories. And these were just on the floor, splitting to the mixer and to the front of house. And I used them for the talkbacks. It did sound like a bit of an audience mic in my ears in practice, which was nice to kind of hear a little bit of the room ambiance. But it was just so that me and Josh could talk to the audience and then have that in our ears. Because I imagine it would be quite awkward if we talked to the audience and we didn't have it in our ears. With this rig is I had a lot of fun mixing the band in my ears. As some of you may know, like I mix my own music. So immediately while putting on the in-ears, my mixing hat kind of turns on and I hear stuff. And so I end up EQing the drums and leveling everything properly and compressing the snare and all that stuff. And on my mix, I even have like a 2-bus compressor going, so it sounds like a record because the snare like pumps the mix and all that sort of stuff. So that was a lot of fun, and it was really cool seeing like what each member wanted in their ears. Personally, I had a very album picture with the click, obviously. In my ears, I really liked that. And then I had just Josh like a little quieter than me. And I think Josh did this, and Josh did the same thing, but just flipped. He was a little louder than me. I know Matt had a bass heavy mix, obviously, and Paulo had a really click heavy mix. Because obviously he's sitting at the drums. Paulo also had a little bit of a funny thing going where he had an EAD drum module thing. And I think he used that mostly to record his performances for social media. But he was telling me that he was mixing in like 10% or 15% of the ambience. And that was kind of frustrating to me because I was just like, oh, but like, let me just mix it properly. But I think that mic is just picking up something that like I'm not aware of as a guitarist, and he really wanted as a drummer. I'm not sure I'd be able to point out exactly what the EAD is doing. However, it's a little bit of ambiance. Was I using my PC to send audio and click to front of house in your in-ears or some external device? Yes, I brought my MacBook and I just sat it on top of the rig and plugged that into the Midas MR18. I was using that as an interface actually to kind of save on space. I don't have an extra Scarlett or whatever, so I'm shooting out MIDI and like click in front of house and backing track stuff through the MR18. Everything kind of just worked. It was great. It's important to note that I did have a bunch of people help me while building this rig. So most notably, Chase, the intervals front of house guy and general legend, helped me plan this build. He also helped me source some of the last components of it. And I want to mention him and Keon and also Aaron for helping me like while I was asking them questions. There's a bunch of stuff. There's a bunch of decisions that I made with this rig, including using that MR, the brain as the interface, that I was kind of just like, I need to make sure this is okay on a really large show. I remember asking Chase on a phone call, I was like, if I show up with this sort of rig, would you be mad at me? Like if I showed up to your gig, like I'm opening for a gig that you're like managing or tour managing, would you be mad at me if I did this? And he was like, nope, that's cool, man. So I think I asked that sort of question many times to many different people. And one of those was about that using that brain as a interface. So it's been great, and it cut down on an extra component in the rig. But definitely for redundancy, I could use a backup interface. That could be something that I might do in the future. We'll see. Someone's asking me how many IEMs does it run? Can it be expanded? So right now the unit is 4 stereo mixes. So one of them is wired, that's going to Paulo, and then I got 3 stereo wireless mixes, which is why I got the 3 Sennheisers G4s. So it could be expanded. I could get another set of receivers, right? So I could paste the mix. So I got to have more people in the band, but have the same mix. Also on the back of the IEMs, there are TRS outs. So I could potentially have another wired member just by taking 2 TRSs out, which would be nice. Another thing people do that I'm not interested in is having 8 mono mixes. And the reason why I'm not interested in is I just really wanted the stereo mixes. I just really want to hear the toms and my ping pong and all this sort of stuff. It just feels a lot nicer. So in specific situations, like one-off situations, or if I have a guest or like, I don't know, anything can happen. It is expandable in that way without making any changes, which is nice. How much did it all cost? I don't want to talk about it. It costed much. However, I did get some discounts here and there. The drum pack, I got 50% off. And then because Chase helped me source some of the materials, I was able to get some supplier pricing on a few items, which kind of helped me a lot. However, something I should state is it took me like about a year to build this rig, because it was, there was a bunch of stuff back ordered and everything's expensive. So I bought one thing, then I waited and I bought another thing, and then slowly but surely I had all the units and I put it together. So it takes time, and I did have a conversation about maybe getting cheaper wireless transmitters, and I was intensely discouraged from doing so. If I'm in an unfavorable RF frequency environment, I can deal with it because I have the nicer transmitters. Now, it's better to not need it than to need it and not have it, so I have it. I also had some people ask me about the line level thing with the splitter, because if you don't know, with this Midas splitter workflow, I'm shooting things at post gain. Pre-EQ and compression and everything, but post-gain, which means that the gain level that I set for my IEM mix is what the sound guy is doing. So I didn't have any issues. I did state that in my advance on my technical input list, so everybody was sort of ready and expected it, and there were no issues. I imagine if there was an issue, the sound guy would just be able to put a pad on whatever. But something that I didn't think about that this solves also is I'm taking care of all the phantom power. There is no phantom power being sent to front of house to my rig, which means that there is no potential for anything on my end getting fried, which is sick. The biggest thing that I noticed from having this rig and also from having automatic patch changes is that all of a sudden I'm focusing on a finer level of detail in my own playing. And I said this to a bunch of people, and I truly believe this, but for the first time, while playing a set list, I believe that there's a possibility of me playing perfectly. And for how ridiculous some of these guitar parts are, that's saying a lot, right? I'm counting on my fingers the little mistakes I'm making here and there. Because with the click is holding my hand, the patch changes are happening automatically, I'm just focusing on playing in the pocket, on my vibrato being perfect, my notes being in tune, my hands being relaxed. I get to focus on these finer detailed things because everything is taken care of. All right, the sun has set here in Montreal, so I think it's time I wrap up this video. I hope you've enjoyed this nerd fest. This is definitely the most gear-oriented video I've done. Very, very technical. If there's any other aspect of how we built the show that you would like to know, please put in the comments. I did build quad cortex changes and whatnot and automated everything in the laptop, and I kind of did the whole prog thing that all your favorite bands do all the time, which is kind of sick. So if you're curious about all that, just let me know. But yeah. I look forward to using this rig on many, many shows to come. I'm actually going to play with Bird Problems this weekend, and hopefully it should be just as effective, but on a smaller stage, but feel just as luxurious, which is my goal, right? The flexibility and the scope of the show that we're playing. My name is Joseph Anajar. I'm a musician from Montreal, Canada, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thank you so much.